Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here on the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, finfanatic.com, the Fansided Network, and all of our social media outlets. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is fanatic_pick on Twitter. Here we are with a special Wednesday night show because the Dolphins play Thursday night football. Yes, the Dolphins do have a primetime game. They actually have not only this one, but also a Monday night game against the Saints later in the year, believe it or not. The Dolphins are 2-7, playing the 6-2 Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens coming down to Miami, 7.5-point favorites right now at this point. The Ravens were 6-2, one of the best teams in the AFC right now. This game is in Miami. Dolphins are coming off a win against the Texans, a very, very, very ugly win, but a win nonetheless. So things are going to turn around, and the Dolphins are going to go on a winning streak, Paul. It's got to happen here, and it's got to start with an upset because they play the Ravens at home on a primetime game. Some weird things can happen on Thursday Night Football. Then after that, they play at New York against the Jets. Then 3 home games against the Panthers, Giants, and Jets with a bye week in between there. So, heavy underdogs here. And the Dolphins need to have this one. There's no doubt about that.
They really do. It'd be great to have them get this win. And you know, I know we're going to talk about it in depth, but you got to contain Lamar Jackson. Whew, God, looking at the stat lines. Roll into MetLife, take over. And get a win there, and suddenly that's 3 games in a row, and it sets you up very well. I know you just talked about the upcoming schedule. I'm under no illusion of playoffs, even though the Dolphins are mathematically alive. But yeah, no, we just need something to feel good right now. We don't have our own first pick, so let's roll.
Last week, the Dolphins-Texans game, I had to rewatch it again to admire how terrible it was on both sides of the ball. The Dolphins had 3 picks and a game-clinching forced fumble and did not win the turnover battle because they turned the ball over 5 times on offense. And the big story in this game is going to be whether or not Tua Tagovailoa is going to start at quarterback. It is supposed to be a game-time decision, truly a game-time decision at the quarterback spot. But when I look at it too, Jacoby Brissett started last week. He's practiced the last couple of days. Personally, I don't see Brian Flores just making a last-minute switch to Tua. So I expect Jacoby Brissett to be the starting quarterback. How about you?
I do as well, even though I don't love it. I mean, Jacoby Brissett was bailed out a lot last week by things like Mike Gesicki's tremendous catch radius. And the running game seems to be stalling worse than ever. I don't know if it's lack of fear of Brissett or if it's just the offensive line or play calling or all of the above, which it very well could be. But this is the time where we really need to get the chance to evaluate Tua, and we're not getting that right now with yet another injury.
Right. And speaking of injuries, Greg Mance, the Dolphins center, goes on injured reserve. Not a huge deal there. Austin Ryder is going to be starting at center in this game. A lot of people think that he's better. I think that I can agree with that. Will Fuller, surprise, surprise, is not back from injured reserve. Devontae Parker's on injured reserve. So it's going to be the Mike Gesicki and Jalen Waddle show again on the offensive side of the ball. Looking at this matchup historically, you take a look at the last several matchups between the Dolphins and Ravens. Last two matchups in 2017 and 2019, the Ravens won by a combined score of 99-10, 59-10 in 2019, and 40-0 in 2017. And actually in 2016, the Ravens won 28-6. So they have had the Dolphins number a lot here over the last several years. The last time, actually, in the last 9 contests, the Dolphins have beat the Ravens was an ugly game in 2015 where Matt Schaub was at quarterback and the Dolphins won 15-13. So a little bit of history there. But, Paul, digging into what you said there on the offensive, or excuse me, the defensive side of the ball, you have to contain Lamar Jackson. And that's obvious, but to show how special and how different he is as far as running the football, Lamar Jackson has started 49 games in the NFL. In 22 of those 49 starts, the Ravens team has had more than 200 yards rushing in that game.
Yeah, I mean it's and Lamar already has 600 in the on the year, uh, and you look at Miles Gaskin, the Dolphins' leading rusher. He's only got 313. Good lord.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, so really there's no great way to defend Lamar Jackson. There's nothing that has worked across the board. I've seen a lot of different things from Lamar Jackson, or as far as teams trying to defend him, watching him over the last couple of years and really tightly over the last 3 or 4 games. If you go man coverage against Lamar Jackson and you get you get your cornerbacks running down the field with those wide receivers, it spreads the field out. Lamar Jackson slips away, and now he's got the middle of the field wide open. So you risk that. If he's playing against a zone defense, we saw a couple of weeks ago where they contained the Indianapolis Colts, and Matt Burfoulis for the Colts had a strategy to just basically play zone defense the entire game. And when he did that, yeah, he was able to control Lamar Jackson's running, but basically Jackson was able to drop back and just throw the ball and to wide open zones throughout the entire game. Completed, I think, 17 passes in a row at one point. So that didn't work either. So what do you think, Paul, as far as what the Dolphins' strategy should be on the defensive side of the ball?
I think my answer is going to be what my answer is every week. I think they should be utilizing heavy doses of that amoeba defense. It usually contains a mix of zone and man. You don't know who's coming from where, and you can basically rotate around through guys like Jerome Baker, guys like Sam Eguavoen, and have them, some of your speedier linebackers or even nickelbacks, assigned to spy Lamar Jackson on every play, but in a way that he can't identify who's spying him until it's too late. That's your best shot. I'm not saying it'll work 100%. It probably won't. But that's your best shot at containing him and limiting his opportunities.
Right. You need to have containment against him in some way. And it's got to be in some, what I would argue is it's got to be in a little bit of an unpredictable way, because if Jerome Baker spies Lamar Jackson, or Nick Needham is assigned to, in the slot spy him, then Lamar Jackson's faster than those guys. That's the problem, and that's what every team in the NFL has. Lamar Jackson just had his 10th 100-yard game, which ties Michael Vick for most in NFL history, and he's 25 years old? I mean, it's insanity. This is someone completely different as far as running. But what the Dolphins need to do, to me, is play Lamar Jackson like Tyrod Taylor. Yes, I know Jackson is 100 times better than Tyrod Taylor, but what they did last week against Tyrod Taylor is they were blitzing from all angles. And when they weren't bringing the blitz, then Agba and Jalen Phillips were able to get home too. So that, to me, has to be the strategy, because Paul, last week against the Texans, the Dolphins blitzed 53.2% of the time. They've got to keep that number there to keep things unpredictable against Lamar Jackson.
They do. And the other thing I'd say, too, is we brought up Nick Needham, we brought up Jerome Baker, we brought up Sam Eguavoen. Two guys we haven't brought up, and granted, they're a mild step slower than Lamar Jackson, but Javon Holland and Brandon Jones, I believe, both ran. Well, I know Javon Holland ran in the 4.4 or low 4.4s for a 40 time. I don't remember. I think Jones was a little bit slower than that.
Yeah, Jones was not
Jones
a
was
fast.
like a 4.5, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in that area. He's not known for his speed, but they're playing well. And two, when you look at the snaps last week, I believe the Dolphins had 69 snaps on the defensive side of the ball. Holland, I think, had all of them. Brandon Jones had 62 out of the 69. Eric Rowe had 28. And he was able to come off the bench, was get in those sub packages. He was fresh, and he made the game clinching forced fumble.
Yeah, no, I mean it's. But my thought there is, you can even utilize a little bit of Brandon Jones and Javon Holland for some of that spy and contain aspect. Especially the way that they brought Brandon Jones off the edge a couple times. They brought Javon Holland off the edge a few times and moved those guys around. People make a mistake when they think the Amoeba defense is just the front seven. It isn't. You and I have talked extensively about how you'd see Bobby McCain line up at the line of scrimmage, and he was actually uh, your deep middle coverage there, and you'd see somebody else that was lined up deep coming up and be the one blitzing. It's masking coverages and doing tricky things in an intelligent way. That's a staple of the Amoeba defense, and that's where you need to confuse Lamar Jackson and kind of corral him the direction you want him to go, so you can control what's happening on the field in a contained area.
Sure. And that's the reason why you spent all this money on Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. And it frustrates me to no end that starting at last year in the Raiders game, the Dolphins started not blitzing as much and playing their cornerbacks just softer in coverage, their defensive backs in general. And I never understood it. Why aren't you doing the thing that has worked for you?
Yeah.
The major reason why the Dolphins were such a surprise and won 10 games last year. But I feel like they've gotten back to that the last 2 weeks. Josh Allen, they confused Josh Allen for the first 3 quarters and then stopped bringing the heat. And we saw what happened in the fourth quarter of that game. Last week, they kept bringing the heat, bringing the heat, bringing the heat. That's why they were able to force 4 turnovers and 9 points. I mean, some of that's because Tyrod Taylor sucks, as does the rest of the offense does. But, I mean, they've got to – if the Dolphins are going to lose this game, I want it to be because, hey, we got up in their face. We were unpredictable. Yeah, and Marquise Brown beat us over the top once or twice, and that was the difference in the game. But go down swinging.
Yeah, 100%. That's kind of always my mentality for what I want to see. If you're going to go down, make it fantastic, make it memorable. It's I can't stand those boring playing to not lose games that are just brutal. The other thing, you brought up Tyrod Taylor's turnovers last week. We can't talk about those without talking about Jacoby Brissett. He needs to take care of the football. Find a way to play aggressively without playing sloppy, because a lot of those turnovers last week were complete unnecessary mental lapses, as well as I hate to say it, but lesser ability at the quarterback position.
Well, it's 100% true. And that's the thing with Jacoby Brissett, where he is so conservative by nature that when he is stretched to be more aggressive, that's what you start to see. He's the conservative nature leads to fewer turnovers throughout his career. And that's why he's one of the least intercepted quarterbacks in NFL history heading into this season. That's a fact. But now I felt like he was being more aggressive this past week against the Texans, and then we're thinking, well, maybe stop being so aggressive because we think this game's in hand. He sucks. I mean, I'm sorry. There's no other way to say it. He's a bad quarterback. The Dolphins shouldn't have spent $5.5 million a year on him, and I don't care if Tua has a finger owie. I want him to start this game.
15.5 million wasted right now between Brissett and Will Fuller. Ugh.
Yes, Will Fuller Will Fuller is a talented dude who I still feel like was worth the risk. Obviously, it didn't work out. I look at more of Jacoby Brissett, Malcolm Brown, Ethan Carter. I said this in day one of free agency when those are the three guys they came away with. Spent $10 million to have what? A bad backup quarterback, a fifth tight end, and a third string running back who's now on injured reserve. Not good enough, guys.
No,
Um,
they lined him up as a first string running back plenty of times.
yeah, they did to much to our chagrin. Um, yeah, and I mean the running back position in general. I'd like to see a little bit of Savon Ahmed. I know he only had 4 carries for 6 yards last week, but I actually feel like if he can get going a little bit, then you might have something there. But just staying with the Ravens offense before we jump a little further into the Dolphins offenses, you know, they're going to be without obviously J.K. Dobbins is on injured reserve. Um, Latavius Murray did not practice this week. He should be out of this game as well. Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell are going to be their 1-2 punch in this game. That's another part of it. Is the Ravens ran for 250 yards on the ground last week. Lamar Jackson was responsible for 120. But you've got to make Devontae Freeman beat you too on the ground, not Lamar Jackson.
You do, and Lamar Jackson's legs free up guys like Devontae Freeman. It's when you're set up to spy the quarterback heavily and worry about the rushing threat that he presents, it opens things up for the running backs.
It sure does. Rashad Bateman will play opposite Marquise Brown in this game too. First round pick, a guy we talked about in the pre-draft a lot. That should be a good 1-2 combo for them for a while. And at tight end, Mark Andrews, one of the better tight ends in the league, drafted in the same year as Mike Gesicki, and up to this point, I mean, it's kind of pick your flavor with those. Andrews has been a little more consistent. Gesicki has shown more of that pizzazz, obviously, and he's got to do it again this game. I mean, Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki are both on pace for right around 1,000 yards for the year. Those have got to be the stars of your team here moving forward on the offensive side of the ball. Because I look at the rest of the roster, and which especially with Brissett playing quarterback, I'm like, I don't know who the third best player is on offense. Maybe Robert Hunt. I mean,
Could be.
I mean that's a tough guts. I mean, after Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki.
Actually, no, I take that back. It's not tough. For me, it's Mac Hollins, whether he's being utilized or not.
And that is sad. I like Mac Collins, and I think you're right on that too. I mean, Gaskin in the receiving game is good, but I mean, 2 of his last 4 games. I mean, the last game was terrible, and the Jaguars game a few weeks ago for Gaskin was pathetic. I mean, and that's why you need to have that bell cow number 1 back, because not only do you have a running game or a better running game in that situation, but you have Gaskin out there in the receiving game focusing on that a little bit more.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's either Hollins or Durham Smythe.
Oh God. I mean, Jesus. Ugh. Yeah, probably. I mean, so
I mean, he's no Ethan Carter, but
Ethan Carter. What a genius signing that was. And where's Hunter Long? Huh? Can't find that dude.
it's he's hanging out since they've got 8 freaking tight ends active on game day already.
Yeah, which is exactly what we said when he was drafted. He's like, you're planning Durham Smythe's recession plan here. Not God. I mean, see, I try not to go on these tangents about the stupidity of what the Dolphins have drafted and signed and what the crap they're putting out on the field is. But here we are, past my bedtime, angry.
But I'll make you feel better, Kat. Evan Boehm is back.
Oh, on the practice squad. That's correct. Good segue there. So, Greg Mance put on injured reserve. Like we said, Austin Ryder will start this game again at center. And Evan Boehm on the practice squad. Probably you'll see him at some point this year. We're not sure when, but we'll see about that. I'm trying to figure out where's Greg. How bad does Greg Little have to be to not be active on game day and getting a few snaps? Because that's been the most depressing thing on the offensive line is, Liam Eichenberg in week 1 when he had to play against the Patriots because Austin Jackson was out. I thought except for a couple of plays, played reasonably well. And then when he was switched to left tackle with Austin Jackson, his first game was against the Bucs, and I thought he did well in that game. Since then, he has been arguably worse than Austin Jackson at the left tackle position, and that is saying a lot. This last game against the Texans, who he wasn't facing an elite player or an elite athlete like Josh Allen, he got ragdoll, consistently knocked back. I mean, I don't know where to go from here on the offensive line.
You put Solomon Kinley in for Austin Jackson. You flip flop Robert Hunt and Jesse Davis. You make it an open competition for right guard, and you put together an open competition for left tackle, or you realize that you're going to take your lumps a little bit from Tua's front side for a while while Eichenberg develops. I mean, they've got the talent on this roster to be at least okay, and they're not doing it.
The offensive line has the talent to be at least okay.
Yeah, I didn't say great. I didn't say send some people to the Pro Bowl, but they've got talent to be okay.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Flip flop Hunt and Jackson or Davis.
They have the talent to be better than the worst in the league, if we can agree to meet there. But they are playing players in the wrong spots.
Right.
Yeah, I would say this, and I've said this in the beginning. Play Jesse Davis at left guard, Solomon Kinley at right guard, Robert Hunt at right tackle, because those are their best spots. See, the Dolphins keep drafting these players and say, no, instead of you focusing in at left tackle or left guard, we're going to cross train you in 4 different positions when you're walking in the building as a rookie, not knowing what you're doing. Stupid. Don't do it again. So, and that's the depressing thing now, Paul, with the offensive line is, are you going to flip flop 4 guys again? I mean, you might as well, I guess, but then it's going to be, well, they need a few weeks to get continuity together. Are there going to be communication breakdowns? Which is why they should have made these moves in week 3 or week 4 when everything was falling apart.
Or week 4 of last season when they inserted Kinley at right guard, Hunt at right tackle, and Jesse Davis at left guard. Leave that alone and just mess around with the remaining bits. Or keep Jermaine Illuminor, who's still starting and doing well for the Raiders, or any one of 1,000 things. Put Ethan Carter at guard. See what he can do.
Matt Skura starting for the Giants is actually doing a pretty decent job too.
Skippy, I agreed with getting rid of.
Well, I mean, you could have moved him to guard. You're only paying him $1 million, which is, I'm pretty sure that's where he's playing with the Giants now. I'm not positive, but.
Well, I definitely wouldn't play him anywhere that he actually touches the ball.
Well, at right guard, he wouldn't have to. I mean, he'd be an upgrade over what the Dolphins are trying to do now. We'll get into the offseason stuff later, but Dolphins need to stop screwing around. Draft an offensive tackle in the first round. It's going to be a very good year at offensive tackle. I know they don't have their first round pick, but they've got the 49ers, which may be a 10 to 15 pick. We've got to root against the Niners the rest of the year. And in the free agent market, you've got Teron Armstead, you've got Orlando Brown, you've got an older Dwayne Brown hitting the market. You've got 5 or 6 guys who all aren't going to hit the market, but a couple will. And that's got to be priority number 1. When you do that, Liam Eichenberg at left guard, Michael Dieter at center, Robert Hunt at right guard, and stop moving these people around.
Solomon Kinley at right guard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Kinley fan, though. That's the thing is, I think he's better than what the Dolphins are doing now, but I would not. There's no way I would point to him and say he needs to start next year.
My thought though is you keep Kinley at right guard, Hunt at right tackle, and then you draft the left tackle this offseason, or sign somebody in free agency like you were talking about.
Sure, I'd be in favor of that. It would include moving Robert Hunt back to right tackle, and maybe you sign a guard to compete with Kinley and whoever else is on the roster. So
yeah,
But something needs to be done because this, I mean, what I saw in rewatching the Texans game, what I saw against the Jaguars was absolutely pathetic, and it is ruining the team and it is ruining drives. It, I want to see Tua come back here and be reasonably well protected. And against that Ravens defense, they don't have Matt Judon anymore. He's with the Patriots. He's got what 8.5 sacks now with the Patriots. Uh, Owe for the Ravens. He was Jason Owe. Now he's Odafe Owe, the first rounder out of Penn State, leads their team with 3.5 sacks. Their best edge rusher. Um, but overall, too, when I look at this Ravens defense on the year, they're allowing a quarterback rating of 101.5. They're not great against the run. This isn't that dominant Ravens defense that the Ravens defense has always been ranged somewhere between great and definitely above average. They seem to be just kind of an average unit this year. And I hope I don't come to eat those words.
No, I was actually talking to a Ravens fan briefly tonight, and that was one of the things he was saying is their defense is very beatable and a mess right now. But the offense can keep it in high gear. So if you mess up, they take advantage.
Sure. And the Ravens don't have Marcus Peters at cornerback. They don't have Deshaun Elliott at safety. Both are on injured reserve. Marlon Humphrey's a great cornerback for them. Chuck Clark is turning into a very good safety. Tavon Young in the slot. That'll be an interesting matchup with Jalen Waddle because he is a fast dude. And on the outside, you've got Anthony Everett, who is kind of like the Levi Wallace of the Ravens team. Both went to Alabama too, but that same type of player. So, yeah, I mean, this would be a great week to have Devontae Parker and Will Fuller because you could spread the field and probably take advantage of these matchups here, but that's not going to happen. So it's got to be the Gesicki and Waddle show again.
It does, and I think we need to see some more Hollins. I do, and I keep saying this, like the way that Hollins and Waddle play together on the same side of the football. But again, that means we're probably going to see a healthy dose of your buddy. Y'all know him at home. You love him. Number 87 in your programs, but number 1 in your hearts. Isaiah Ford, baby. Isaiah Ford.
I can't stand Isaiah Ford. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, wait. I said love him. I'm sorry. I meant just can't stand him.
Yeah, I I admire that he keeps finding his way onto the team and finding work. But it's also it's the depressing part of it too, where he's the guy that if he is playing, it's kind of like the Jesse Davis, starting along the offensive line, where if this guy is on your roster and getting meaningful snaps, something is wrong. And he keeps finding meaningful snaps. Kirk Merritt did have a catch last game, also had a big drop. And he also got free for what should have been a big game. Jacoby Brissett couldn't hit the broadside of a barn on that play or the rest of the game, though, either. So I'm rooting for Tua to play in this one. I missing 2 games in a row with a finger injury, and you missed a game last year when you banged your finger off somebody's helmet too. I mean, I don't know how this works. Does he not have finger durability? Is that a thing? Like,
So what they were saying is that he was struggling at times to grip the ball in a way that would allow him to make all of the throws that he needs to. If the swelling goes down, he's good to go. But because of the swelling in the finger, it's messing with his grip on the ball.
and they emphasize that it would affect Tua's ability to throw the ball downfield, which makes me laugh extremely hard. That
The Dolphins don't do that.
the Dolphins don't do that, and to say that Tua it would have to sit out, and we need to start Jacoby Brissett so that the football can be thrown accurately, is also hilarious. So if he can't grip the ball, say so. And I want to see him out there with a big cast on his finger on the sideline, not with nothing all week on his finger, nothing on the sideline this past weekend. But I don't know. That whole thing is weird to me. So we'll see. Hopefully Tua starts, throws for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. I don't see that happening, but I think he's in on any day of the week. He's better than Jacoby Brissett. So,
I think Tua with a busted, swollen finger is better than Jacoby Brissett, but that's me.
and I think Reed Sinnett was cut because he was threatening to Jacoby Brissett. I mean, we can get into all those theories here. Who would you rather have starting a game?
Sinet.
No, 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 no. I got a better one. Jacoby Brissett in 2021 or Brock Osweiler in 2018?
Oh, Brissett. Easily.
I
Unfortunately.
I go Osweiler. I would. I mean, it's pick the gun. It's pick the gun to shoot yourself with, and that.
The
But
Ethan Carter of quarterbacks.
maybe go Wildcat all game. I don't know, but we've gotten so little this season. It would be, and the Ravens are unpredictable too this year. Even though they're 6-2, they're a good team. They should remain one of the stronger teams in the AFC. You look back at their last few weeks. They beat the Chargers by 28. They come back, they get shellacked by 24 against the Bengals the following week. And then this past weekend, it's 17-3 Vikings at halftime. Ravens come back, end up winning that game in overtime because the Vikings send everybody into overtime, or it's 34-31 every game there. But yeah, I mean, I don't feel great about this game, Paul, but I'm going to throw it to you first for predictions.
I think it's going to be 34-27, and Miami doesn't get on the win streak this week for the season.
I'm gonna get even more specific. I'm gonna say the Dolphins jump out to a 14-3 lead. Everyone's going nuts. Game ends up 31-21 Ravens after Lamar Jackson steamrolls the Dolphins in the second half. That's the way the season has gone. I hope I'm wrong. And I will say that I'm holding out hope that this defense that has looked more like the 2020 defense in recent weeks steps up to play. Paul, before we sign off, anything else from chat or any other thoughts that come to mind?
Uh, Not a lot, really. I mean, other than I hope Preston Williams is inactive for the foreseeable future, since he can no longer be traded.
So Preston Williams and Sheldrick Redwine, who they picked up at safety and receiver, weren't they sent home for disciplinary reasons for a game, or for a day? I think this
Oh,
past week. I know
I'd ground Preston Williams after watching him try to catch a ball too. Let's face it. Oh yeah, but they were.
it may have been a misprint with Redwine. I'm not sure, but Preston Williams was because he had to answer questions about that, so he was disciplined and so cut these guys. Like, what are you hanging on to Preston Williams and Sheldrick Redwine for at this point? If you're needing to send them home in the middle of the season, get them out of here. Like, anyway, anything uplifting to end the show?
Actually, just a funny little thing. So I was on the player presser yesterday, and there is no more uncomfortable situation as a Dolphins fan right now than sitting in a room and watch the floor get open to reporters to talk to Austin Jackson about what he feels he's doing well and what he could improve upon. Um,
This is why I don't listen to any press conferences, or I don't care, because they're just trying to say as little as they possibly can to get off the stage and not be the head news story in the newspaper. And if they say something really stupid, I'm going to hear about it the next day. I'm going to hear about it from somewhere. I'm going to hear about it from TV. I watch a lot of different shows throughout the day. So I've never seen any value in watching or listening to what coaches or pro athletes have to say, to be quite honest with you. I don't care. Just I'll watch you play, and that's it. I don't doesn't matter. Anyway, so that's going to do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins Ravens matchup. Be sure to follow me at Brian Cat NFL, Paul at Fanatic_pick on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, FinFanatic.com website, and the FanSided Network. And we will be back here, win, lose, or draw, tomorrow night to break down the Dolphins Ravens matchup. It's going to be a late one. So I'm thinking 11 Central, midnight Eastern. That's fluid to change. We'll be sure to post on that too. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.